Is it working? Are we live? Is it happening? I'm gonna consult on my phone right here just to see. Sounds good. All right, nice. Welcome everybody to the inaugural DvsM live stream. I'm Gary Hodges. You know who I am. You're here. Oh my God, I think somebody's listening to me in the other room and I just heard it booming. So anyway, I've gotten the feedback in the past. This is something probably some of you have heard me say before. I've gotten feedback in the past that when I'm working on my comics, I just sort of disappear from public life for a year and change, and then reappear with a comic like Moses off Mount Sinai, and just, you know, here are the tablets. Thank you, thank you, thank you, everyone. And then I go back up the mountain and no one sees me again for a year. And, you know, obviously that process works for me, but I think there are some people that would rather have a little more frequent engagement, which is fine. The problem with that is, you know, bandwidth is limited. I have a day job and then I'm drawing a comic. I'm drawing a complicated comic, and that's pretty much where all my time goes. So it's kind of hard to be more active and out there and doing like videos for YouTube and all that stuff, and not sacrifice drawing time. So the solution this time, maybe we're going to try this, is I'm going to do a weekly live stream. And it's just going to be Saturdays, typically. Squatchy, don't make me ban you. Just, I'm going to say that right now, Squatch. Just, I'm not going to deal with the heckling. I'm not. Anyway, I lost my train of thought now. What kind of fan are you? Let's talk, you know, this is the new topic today. What kind of fan is Squatch really? So what this is going to be is on Saturday mornings, late mornings, whenever I have fully like started to get caffeinated and I'm ready to start my day, I've had breakfast, I've done whatever I need to do. I'm going to sit down. Typically, this is my normal routine. This has been the routine for the past few months, actually. And I will start usually the newest page I'm going to be drawing for the day. In a very simple way. Basically, I'm opening an Illustrator document. That's the format I need. I know what my panels are going to look like. I have my little cheat sheet chicken scratches. Look, it's all of DvsM. Look at the spoilers. Look at the crazy spoilers. Oh my God, I'm just giving it away for free. What am I doing? Have I lost my mind? Everything must go to sale. I don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, this is enough for me to know what's on each page that I'm going to be drawing. So what I typically do Saturday mornings is I consult my sheet. What's the orientation of the panels? I look at my thumbnails. This I'm not going to let you see too closely because even though it's crude and kind of hard to make out, it actually does have dialogue and story beats and stuff on it. Figure out what's in each panel. I set up my Illustrator page. I set up my panels. The first thing I do is paste in my dialogue from my script, because I want to see like what kind of real estate's being taken up by dialogue, because I don't want to draw something I don't need to draw. If I'm just going to be covering something with dialogue, I don't want to spend forever. And I've done this in past comics, spent forever laboring over some panel doing this really nice drawing, and then I drop the dialogue in and it covers half of it, and I didn't need to be wasting that time. So now, older and wiser, I drop dialogue in first just to get a sense of how big it is and probably where it will be. I pull in all my reference images. So especially since these are period comics, all my 70s stuff, all my reference photos I might have done of live models, any kind of, you know, images, in some cases, images of lizards and snakes and birds and whatever I'm using to kind of cobble together the look of a dinosaur, or whatever it may be. I get all that kind of laid out around my artboard, get my panel set up, get my dialogue in there, and then I'm ready to start drawing. And so all that process I described, that's where I'm going to be live streaming, because I can easily talk while I'm doing that. It's not a drain on my brain. Once I get to drawing, though, I'm going to sign off. This will not be a live stream, just for anyone who's looking for that sort of thing. I don't do that. We'll probably talk about that maybe next week, like why I'm just averse to doing a live stream. I have nothing against other people doing it. Lots of people I really like and respect do it. It's not like, oh, I'm philosophically opposed. It doesn't work for me, and I'm not going to cloud my attention. That's the short version. I'm not going to mess with my process by drawing while being watched. It bothers me. But some things I can do while being watched, like set up a page. This will mostly be like, some weeks I'll have a topic, some weeks I'll have something in mind to kind of I'll talk about while I'm putting my page together. Other weeks I won't have anything at all. We'll just see what's going on. Some weeks I'll just kind of go through the chat. Some weeks I'll heckle Squatch. Some weeks I'll get into furious debates with Josh Campbell. I'm not planning to do that at all. There's not going to be any debating on this live stream. I'm telling you right now. Who has the time? But anyway, all right. I'm going to start setting up my page. If anyone is interested in popping in as a little guest thing, I can send you a link. Just let me know. Reach out. I really appreciate it. Now I'm looking at this. I liked toxic Squatch syndrome. I think TSS that's got to be a new hashtag. Let's make that a thing. Let's get that trending on Instagram, on social medias, on all the social medias. TSS. TSS probably stands for something else. That's toxic shock syndrome, right? Maybe we're not going to become hashtag famous anyway. Okay, so now let's see here. Okay, I will send. Looks like Josh might hop on. Why? Josh, what are you afraid? Why are you afraid of debating? Let's see here. Invite, copy, and bear with me. These first couple times I'm doing this will probably be a little clunky while I'm figuring out where everything is and how to make things happen and how to ban Squatch. Okay, let's see here. I sent Josh, I posted a link in our Facebook chat. Frank is saying, I don't do live draws either. I'll do some time lapses. But if I'm drawing, yeah, I've noticed that. I see Frank working a lot, but you don't actually see the work, which is probably what that's what this is going to be. Squatch, see, now we've made Squatch uncomfortable. Squatch, no, it's all in good fun. Don't worry about it at all. I mean, you may be toxic, but not when it comes to the comic pressure. I appreciate that you're interested in the next DvsM. I'm excited for you guys to see the next DvsM. I think it's going to be. I think this about all of them. I think it's going to be special. I think it's going to be. Since I'm only doing 6 of these, and they're anthology style, so they're loosely connected, kind of connected, and then we'll all get tied up into a bow with the last one, but each one is basically a standalone. It's very important to me that I'm officially opening Illustrator, guys. It's very important to me that each one stands on its own. Each one is a worthy installment. And I wholeheartely believe this next one has earned its spot. As the year goes on, we're adding.
Hey, let me change my view
Josh
here.
himself. Hey.
All right, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great.
Okay, let me see if I can change my viewpoint here. Okay, I'm gonna have to adjust in real time. Look at that. Boom. How's that?
Look at that. Boom.
Does that work okay?
Yeah, that works great.
All right.
Good to see you. Thanks for dropping by on the first episode.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I was live streaming this morning and I'm like, I am going to not overlap with yours. I wanted to like hopefully route people from there to yours too, because this is
you're not
cool.
stealing my audience?
No, I mean, like, I think that like half the fun, you know, if you watch live streams and stuff, it's like half the fun of it is the inter-stream stuff. And so it's like the more kind of the merrier, honestly, with our community. I think this is going to be badass to have this much stuff. So yeah.
I agree. I mean, I think what finally tipped me over, you know, I'm a couple years now into doing comics, and it's something obviously I have not done until now. I think what finally tipped me over is me realizing how much I appreciate it in other people doing it. Like how much I enjoy yours and how much I enjoy like having that resource just when I'm drawing, just to listen to someone else talk about drawing, you know? Like, so it's like, once I realized like someone out there will find this handy. Like, it's like, okay, I'll do it.
Totally, dude. Totally. Well, that's exciting, dude. I'm kind of thrilled to see you working on your process as well more often. That'll be fun.
Yeah, well, and it'll be nice. It's funny, you know, when you're doing curated videos, like edited, assembled videos, crafted videos, bespoke videos,
assemblage collage videos.
That's right. You try. It's almost like DvsM. You try to make each one count. You really try to think about like what's video worthy.
Yeah.
And lots of times I have ideas of things that I would want to talk about, but I just don't think it's video worthy. So it's like, well, this will be perfect. Like I can, you know, now this is a way for me to introduce little ideas, you know, that I don't think I would want to sit and edit a whole video about, you know, but it's at least throwing out there. So.
Yeah, it's great. It's also just going to be fun to hear, I don't know, just to hear updates on where things are at and talk art stuff. So
yes, which is a good, it's all, I mean, it's like we rehearsed this. Maybe I should give a little status update just to let people know where I'm at. So like, as I suggested, I've been doing this for a few months now. My rate is a page a week. As far as how the process has gone so far, I was way ahead, and then I was behind, and then I was ahead again, and now I'm right about on schedule. So, and I'm hoping to at least maintain on schedule. But I'm starting page 9 today. I hope that doesn't make, I think it's actually, 9. Okay. I hope that doesn't make, I'm working, Squatch. Illustrator is open. I'm doing things. Squatch, please. It's just, you know, I can talk and work at the same time. I can't draw and work at the same time, but I can mess around with Illustrator at the same time. So starting page 9 today, and the intention is no matter how well or poorly it's going, every week I will be starting at least the next page, because that is my slowest rate, is a page a week. So there's always going to be a new page being worked on every Saturday.
That's exciting. How many, do you have a rough idea of how many pages yet?
Yes, but I don't know if I want to speak that out loud yet.
Okay.
Because I'm worried it will create a panic with Squatch. What I will say is I'm already looking at the schedule. I don't know if you'll be able to pick this up. They're in my little, you can kind of see the highlights. Those are pages that I think I can do in like a day.
Yeah.
A day or two, you know, and I'm already looking ahead and like how I can get ahead and break out of the page a week thing. Some of these are absolutely going to be weak, and some are going to be pushing to get it done in a week. But there's a lot I can do in, like I said, a day or two. So I don't want anyone to kind of start doing the math and think like, oh, that means the comic will be out on this date, because that's going to be a farther off date than I've been saying, which is end of year.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it at that for now. And as this goes on over the next few months, I'll probably reveal more info. just as I'll reveal more info about what this one is about and, you know, things like that. But right now I'm still playing it pretty close to my chest.
I love it. I'm excited. This is going to be cool.
Let's see.
I love that a lot of your decisions have to be based on like your PR strategy is like Squatch maintenance, basically.
It is. It is. Well, look, it's a significant thing. I mean, you know.
True. You have to maintain the Squatch.
You gotta take care of your hardcore fans.
Yeah.
You know, like you gotta serve them first. And then besides, no one wants an angry Bigfoot like out in their backyard peering in through the window. Like that's,
you know, it's a good motivator though. It's like, I mean, if you imagine all of us as cartoonists, like if only people knew that like the secret to all cartoonist output is that we're constantly in fear of a giant Bigfoot basically destroying us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's the little voice in my head sometimes, you know.
I love
so
it.
now, and again, I'm not going to show this because I don't. Just to let you know what I'm doing in this second. I'm opening my Excel spreadsheet that has all the dialogue for DvsM 1979 to copy and paste in page 9's dialogue. So this is the exciting, sexy process of doing a comic.
Awesome.
So how's yours coming along?
It's crazy. It's like so right now I'm flatting. I did a little bit of a like tutorial on my channel just showing like the basics of how I would go about, because this is a little different. Like there's a clear method to digital coloring in Photoshop that's super quick that you can do when you have solid black and solid white line art. And there's a way to make it solid black and light and alias your edge and all of that so that you're using quick selections and you can flat a page like super quick. To do it when you have value on that line layer, it's like a whole different technique. And so I kind of walked through a little bit of how I work, because and I was explaining like and I wonder if you have a bit of this too, but when it comes to digital coloring or like prepping for print, I always kind of gamify it. So it feels like you're playing a video game when you're doing these things. So it's like, for me, when I'm flatting color, I'm starting with the largest area of color, and then I start reducing flat selections. And so I work reductively rather than additively. I don't know if that makes sense. So
wait, say that one more time. Just like I want to make sure I followed that.
We're gonna debate about this, man. No,
we're gonna because I am 100% opposed.
You're like, I work additively and I'm not for this deductive working.
That's right. And in fact, I think your kind of approach to work is everything that's wrong with the country today.
Exactly. You're like, I'm not going to ad hom, but I think you're a waste of space as a human being. Like,
that's right. Only a total bastard would do it the way you're talking about. But I'll entertain this thought. Go ahead.
Yeah. But I'm going to stay open-minded here. I just wanted to say that's a very bastardly version of no. So basically, I have this like crazy line art that's like this. So you can kind of see it here where it's like, I don't have solid black lines to make selections within, right? I'm not doing that. Like even my solid line is like, it's not like, so if I were doing this in like just traditional ink, right? Like that solid line is going to be like a step ladder.
Right.
When I zoom in, but because this is anti-aliased lines intentionally, so it'll look like pencil.
Got it.
That creates complications because the regular way you would flat is you would literally go in there with like if you're smart, you're going to go in there with like your magic wand, you're going to make your selection, you expand it out, and then you fill on a different layer. And it's just, you do that super quick.
Right.
I've seen people paint their flats and I think they're insane. To paint flats like is just insanity. You should be using selection tools. But anyhow, so what I'm doing now is basically going in and picking I'm making aliased edged flat selections of color, and I'm working reductively. So what I do is I start with my largest area, and then I start selecting colors from that, and then taking away a color at a time. But I do it as a whole. So it's like, hey, if I'm going to have like my hat color, I'm going to basically deselect everything that's the hat color after I've filled it. As much as that can make sense, I guess that's kind of what I'm doing. Does that make sense for like the reductively working? So right now I'm doing like,
in a way, but I think I would like to see the process. Like
yeah. So a good example, I'm using like the sky, right? Right now I'm at a point where I have everything on this character kind of worked out as a flat color. Now I've decided to do the sky tone, which by the way, all these, since we're flatting, it's like all of this could change later. For color selections, we're just selecting the shapes at this point. So what I'm doing is like, now I'm going to basically take away the sky from this selection. So this is what I mean by reductively. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to basically take out everything in my page that is sky. I'm going to go in and deselect out. So you'll see the marching ants like disappear. Oh my goodness.
How did you?
Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
have you done this process before? Did you have to come up with this to make this work?
This is what you have to do to make flat selections when you're dealing with art that has like a mass amount of like rendering on it, even if it is like aliased. If you have like a ton of like cross hatching on a page or something like that and you're coloring it, it's just a really effective, quick way to do it, and have like aliased flat selections under. Or you could do what Corey's wisely recommended I do, which is outsource your flats and have someone else do it. The problem is, again, like you end up with that scenario where like you can outsource flats when you have solid line art, but when you start getting into rendered line art where you're wanting aliased solid flats underneath it, it's like it becomes a complicated thing to outsource.
You can still outsource it.
Yeah, just your chances of getting the flats you want back. Like outsourcing, the general rule of thumb is like the more complicated the process, like the more likely it is that they're going to screw it up.
For sure.
But even if they screw it up, they might only screw up, a fifth of it, and you're still paying somebody.
Right. They're still getting you most of the way there, maybe.
Yeah. So in my book, if they screw it up, but it still saved me 2 hours, it was well worth the money.
So just for fun, I'm just going to show you, like, I deselected the sky from that one. Now, what I would do is do that on every single layer, but just to show you real quick how that's advantageous is now I move on. I can use like hue saturation to kind of like pick my next color. Like, let's say I'm going to do the ropes. And I can start kind of sliding it around. Oh my gosh, let's see here. So let's say I decided like I'm going to have the ropes be like that tone. Then I can now start deselecting the ropes, right? And just kind of work my way through to where I'm working reductively rather than additively. And I can deselect every rope in the scene. And now I end up with like these solid, beautiful flats that are easy, crisp selections that can also function as masks as I'm doing rendering later on. So it's like I will high five myself. Luckily on these pages, I don't have to do rendering, but it's like if you work this way, you'll high five yourself for having layers of flats that you can quickly select, and you don't have to like do mask layers or anything complicated.
I know. So what is your top layer? What would be your ink layer? Like what layer? What is the format? Like, is it a multiply layer, or what are you doing?
No, it's so I showed this process too. So you can do a multiply layer. The downside
that's usually what I do when I'm coloring.
Yeah, and that's a way I was thinking about, but no, like the nice thing about this is literally solid art. So if again I wanted to do like let's say on these birds, if I wanted to do like a color hold, I can literally go to my line layer and I can just paint over it. Like, let's say, I don't know, I want this to be color held in magenta. I can literally paint over it and color hold the areas of the line that I want. Does that make sense? So I could literally make the line like whatever color I want. Like, okay, now I'm going to have a magenta book.
What's kind of fascinating, and it's something that could have come up in the Adobe topic. What's kind of fascinating about these programs now is they've gotten so complicated that there is always now 4 different ways to do something.
Yeah.
And you can feel like you know a program pretty well, and you see someone else's flow, and you're like, wait, well, what? You know, like you're doing it, and it works, but it's just you. That's not how you approach it. I mean, that's how diverse the feature set is. Yeah.
Yeah, and like even with this, it's like the multiply is cool, except that you have less. I was talking about this on my stream, but it's like you have less control when you multiply over the richness of your blacks. And so for me, I want all of my black to be 50, 50, 50, 100. That's how I want to print them. And I know that like the variations are going to be like lighter or darker versions of that. But the second I hit multiply, it's going to be affected by the color underneath it in a way that is less effective than actually if I could just directly paint over it. So my workaround with that is when you have your black and white, when you're like this, you basically go to grayscale, and then you go into your channels, you select your channel, you make a new layer and you fill it, and you get rid of all white on the page, and you end up with like transparent white. And then you can, once you've locked your transparent pixels, like I said, you can change that to whatever color you want it to be, whatever style of black or whatever. Anyhow, totally rambling, but it's
it's interesting.
It's a really useful way to do it.
What is in that? Like Corey's drink, it's like the end of a football game. He's drinking out of this enormous. What is happening?
Yeah. I feel like
just Josh has hacks to like make art faster, and I am just a lazy person in general, and so this is just so I fill up my water bottle less.
There you go. Okay.
So everything in my life is gauged towards me doing less stuff.
I really wanted it to be something absurd, like it's all chicken soup, and you're just drinking this. I don't know why I wanted it to be that, but I wanted it to be something really weird, like just.
I'm loving the chicken soup idea, Gary. That's amazing.
Yeah, I have. If I were not married, I would be like barely human. I think I would just. I would be almost indistinguishable from like a cave dwelling animal.
Yeah,
because
you got civilized.
Yeah, I've been domesticated.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, the idea of soup or anything else that is like easily portable and easily heated up, like back in like medieval England when they would just like start cooking a stew and then just leave the stew cooking for like months.
All day,
just continue to add stuff and stir it in.
The same base, basically. It's the same stew, right?
Yeah, as long as it's hot, you're good, and you can eat it whenever you want, and you don't ever actually have to prepare it.
Just gotta
Corey,
keep adding. Yeah.
Did you read the Off to Be the Wizard books?
Yeah, that's where I get that.
There's a whole bit about stew in there. That's amazing. So
yeah. Those are fun books. I'm gonna find a new book series. I don't know. I've probably read like a dozen books in the last 3 months, and I ran out of all the ones that I was looking forward to. Some of them were not. I read one that on Twitter everybody was like, "This is the best book ever," and I read it and I was like, "That was underwhelming." And it was like some Star Wars book. It should have been right up my alley, but
I have to admit, I think I've read so many Star Wars books, and I thought only one rose to the level of kind of okay. But
I've loved some of them. But...
Really, I would love to hear because I don't know. I think the problem is you go with like what everyone's talking about, and that's
like I need the work itself to be good, not to be based on like. Remember when you were a kid and you thought this was awesome?
Right.
We're gonna co-opt those feelings.
Yeah.
And write with the but like Darth Plagueis. Have you read that one?
That one I have not. No.
It was good. Yeah,
I'd be curious about it.
Yeah, I liked that one because it was basically like Dark Plagueis and Palpatine, you know, like what they were doing during the prequel series, the prequel trilogy, and it actually makes the prequel trilogy make a lot more sense. And it's pretty well done.
Is Plagueis still? Is he alive in the prequel era?
Yes.
Interesting.
I don't want to give too much away, but yes, he is.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, the way Palpatine in the movies made it out, you know, it was like 400 years ago there was this dude, you know.
Right.
But in actuality, without giving away too much of the timeline, the movies and the book overlap.
So, okay, one last spoilerish question. Sorry, I'm kind of going between programs here. Was Palpatine training Maul while Plagueis was around?
Yes.
Oh. Bad form for a Sith. Bad form.
That's what the Sith do, though.
They do. They're always looking to screw each other. So
yeah. You know what's really interesting. I'll give this away because I don't think this is much of a spoiler. This is at the beginning. Darth Plagueis could barely be recognizable as a Sith.
Okay.
He's actually like very Machiavellian in his working and machinations, so super evil in the way that he was doing things, but a pretty good person and didn't believe in the rule of two and felt like the whole apprentice killing the master thing was stupid and was what was causing the Sith to not be in power. And so he had an agreement with Palpatine that they wouldn't do the rule of two. They wouldn't follow that. And so they had this partnership.
Or so he thought.
Yeah.
Apparently. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. You'll have to read the book. But it's pretty interesting, and that was one of the ones I liked. I've read a couple of them, and that was a good one. And I feel like that one was like uncommonly good. So then I've read a few more, and I've been like, that was okay. The Thrawn books are good. Have you read any of the Thrawn ones?
No, I haven't. No. Like I said, I think that my first experience with the books was way back in the day when I can't think of the author's name right now. He put out a series of books that were set after Return of the Jedi. Okay.
Are you talking about the comics, like the Dark Empire stuff, or okay?
But I think it was. It's been so long now, I can't remember. It was the one that introduced Mara Jade.
Oh, okay. I haven't read any of those.
Yeah, and this has all been wiped away. Like this is now like
it's all legends now.
Yeah, it's right. And everyone was talking about like, oh, it's like a new Star Wars trilogy. It's amazing. And I read them and I found them almost unreadable. And that kind of, and then I was checked out. And then around the prequel era, they started releasing more books again. And I thought it was a mixed bag. Like I actually remember really liking the Revenge of the Sith novelization. And there was a book that just was like the prequel to Revenge of the Sith. It was immediately before, and I don't remember which one that was. I thought that one was pretty good.
Do you like?
Then I had another bad run where I just read a couple, and I was like, I don't know, Mike. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I have a lot of trouble with anything other than the movies, and sometimes even the movies, because I feel like it always walks this really fine line between good and kind of fan fiction.
Yeah.
And like Star Wars Mad Libs. Like the thing that will check me out immediately is when a character says something they've said in the movies, like in the comic or in the book.
Right.
Like we have to believe now that like Han Solo says this shit all the time. Or like, Luke says the same line all the time. I can't like that to me, like I will check out so fast. It's like whiplash from checking out so hard where it's
the only believable
quoting
thing,
the movies.
Yeah, the only believable thing is if it's something that they teach their Padawans or something. Because like
Yeah.
as a teacher, I say the same stuff all the time.
Sure, yeah.
But like in my life, yeah, I don't just
Yeah,
constantly
you don't have
say
like a catchphrase you love to say all the
Right,
time.
right.
Like where some people do, and you think that was very weird. But
yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, as a Star Wars fan, the comics in the last 5 to 10 years are better than most of the other media that they've
that's
put
what
out.
I've heard, and I've had a lot of people say, check out the Darth Vader comic series.
Darth Vader's good.
Yeah.
Dr. Aphra is fun. There's one that I read that was supposed to be amazing. It was before the whole Mandalorian Boba Fett thing. And it was like the death of Boba Fett. And it was one of the worst comics I've ever read in my entire life. So they're not all great, but there are some really good ones. But Dr. Aphra is a fun character because she's like an Indiana Jones type character, but she's like a gun runner, and so she like trades on the black market and is selling like weird artifacts to the Empire, but she's got like a moral core, but she also just thinks it's entertaining to like build guns and weird stuff. So she takes like a 3PO, kind of styled droid. I can't remember what the series of droids is called.
So I have a question. Like, what kind of yoga does she have to do to have such a moral core?
Wow.
I'm here all night, guys.
It's the mental gymnastics is
guys, just
interesting.
viewers, I just want to assure you, Josh will not be on any future episodes.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was like the
don't
the
worry.
joke that killed future streams. Yeah,
that was it. No more appearances.
But anyway, she takes like she takes a C-3PO style droid and takes out his information on languages and inputs information on all of the available knowledge of torture. And so she just has this like serial killer C-3PO torture droid. And then she has who showed up in the Black Cranston, who showed up in the Mandalorian Boba Fett series. He's introduced. He's introduced as a Wookiee bounty hunter.
That guy. Okay,
yeah,
or that guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he's a guy.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, and then she's got like an R2 unit that's all black. That is also, I think, more, instead of like an astromech droid that like fixes ships while they're in battle, she replaced that information with just like battle tactics and stuff. And so she's got these two. She has Cranston, her R2 unit, and her whatever human cyborg relations unit. They're all pretty evil, and she's kind of like enjoying the evilness, but also like, hey, dial it back a bit. But she starts by working for Vader, and he's asking her to like to go get some Sith artifacts, because Vader and Palpatine, like as a hobby, like collect Sith and Jedi artifacts.
Right.
So those are fun comics.
They're enthusiasts.
Yeah. Chase says Yoda breakdances if you've played any Lego Star Wars games, and that is true.
Yeah, that was. I saw they just released the latest Lego Star Wars game, and it looks great, but I just found, I don't know, have you guys played those? I know I'm kind of the biggest gamer here, but I found them super tedious. Like you're just running around and breaking up things to collect Lego pieces.
They're
like
pretty grindy.
Yeah.
I those are games that I will occasionally not mind playing with my 3-year-old.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe if I had kids, they would be a little bit more interesting to me. But
even then, I have like one earbud in of an audiobook.
Yeah, right.
Because I'm a horrible father.
I don't think that's horrible. I think you find a way to make it work.
Right.
I feel like my gaming experience starts and ends at, well, it starts at like Atari and then it ends at NES. and then everything beyond that, I just lost touch with. Other than like roommates early in college who had different
had something.
ones. Yeah.
I wish that were the case, but I'm much more versed. But I tell you what, Just Cause 3, which is one of my favorite video games ever, I beat it 2 or 3 times. Like, got 100% of everything that they're asking you to do, beat it. You know, and now I had a save state where it was like I could go in and do whatever I wanted anywhere in the open world because I had done everything. And so it was the perfect game to like log on for 15 minutes and, you know, go do something and then log off. And my son, who calls it the car speeder bike game, because you can kind of like drive all kinds of vehicles and stuff.
I think your son needs to name everything for properties. Like the car speeder bike game sounds like a really rad game.
Yeah,
Helmet
like
guy.
I
all of these names are great.
Yeah, I came downstairs today and he goes, Dad would play the car speeder bike game, because motorcycles to him are speeder bikes. Every time my shirt is off and he sees my scar, he's like, Dad, you get the scar from the speeder bike? Yeah, I got it from the speeder bike. But anyway, so I was letting him play the car speeder bike game, and he has the uncanny ability to like button mash anything in the exact order to destroy it. Like he'll take like a thermometer and like change it to Celsius and French, and we can't change it back. Like we can't. And so like he got on here and within 15 seconds had completely erased my entire game. And I was like, that you had to like go into like 4 menus to do that.
Just the amazing luck.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's my now I'm fighting the urge. Like, do I go through and rebeat this game? Do I spend another like 150 hours over the next year or so beating this game for a 3rd time?
That doesn't sound attractive.
It's so fun. Have you played Just Cause?
I have, and I do like it. It's like not my favorite open world tech game, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I just like it because it's like Grand Theft Auto, but I feel like a good guy because I'm not killing hookers and stealing their money. I'm like liberating an arpeggio from a despot.
Right. Yeah. No, it's got a good,
But I tried Just Cause 4 and it was awful.
That's not the most recent one, but the one just prior, right?
So Just Cause 3, I think, is the one just prior, and Just Cause 4 is the most recent one. And it was like, it had some new mechanics that everybody was excited about. You know, the grappling hook arm, you can like attach an inflatable balloon to somebody and they float away.
Right.
And they made the game like completely different. It's not like the next game in the series. It's more like a modern warfare where you're like commanding troops on the side while you're fighting. And I was like, no, I want to be the lone wolf guy that's going in. But no, you've got all these like, watch out for your tank division. I'm like, I don't want to care about my tank division.
Yeah, I hate that. Yeah. Actually, I'm probably thinking, I'm going to look real quick just to Squatch. I'm taking a quick break from working just to. Yeah, I was thinking of Far Cry, which I was mixing those up. I have played both, but I think Far Cry is one that has a brand new one now. That I was thinking of.
Oh, here's a funny deep cut. Frank says the first couple of pages in Resistance, which is his book about me becoming a quadriplegic, was partly inspired by Corey's son's description of the accident. Instead of a dragon, I used a creature we had planned on using for WA7. So that's funny. I didn't know he was referencing that.
The behind the scenes.
Yeah. I played Far Cry. Is this what you want to do? Sorry, I kind of hijacked your stream and started talking about it.
No, that's fine. Okay. I'm gathering my reference stuff right now while I listen.
So I played the first Far Cry back in like early 2000s, along the same time that there was that game that had like bullet time.
Oh, Max Payne.
Max Payne, yeah.
Yeah.
So those two games blend together for me.
Yeah.
And then I didn't play any of the other Far Cries for a long time, and then I tried one of them because it was on sale on Steam, and it was like unplayably awful. Like I couldn't make it through like the training sequence. Like the just like here push this button to look up, and I was like trying to like just muscle through the first few minutes of the game so they would let me play it.
Yeah.
And I have a new thing now that I'm like really old and just grumpy all the time. If you have unskippable cutscenes, I don't want to delete the game. I want to come to your house and punch you in the neck for wasting my time.
I understand. No, I feel the same way. I've never seen an unskippable cutscene that I absolutely needed to see.
Right. Yeah, it's like this, you're thinking way too much of yourself. No one cares. I don't know. I'm not in video games for the story. Like I just, even like the Halo series, which is a pretty decent story. I'm just there to shoot some people and move on.
Exactly. No, I'm definitely from that generation of gamer where not only do I not care about the story, I get irritated if it's really making me stop playing the game to take into it. That's not what I would be watching a movie or reading a book or something if I wanted this. Like I want gameplay.
Speaking of, how are you digging Elden Ring so far?
Elden Ring is fantastic. I mean, it's a great game. It's Squatch would probably, if he was in Arizona, he'd probably come and slap it out of my hands. But
don't tell him that.
But I'm managing it. Squatch. Work is getting done. Don't worry about it.
You're talking about it like a drug addiction. I can quit. I can quit anytime.
It's not too far off. But
I got a good control on it, man.
It deserves all the buzz. But it's big and deep, and I can see I see people online saying they've topped 150 hours invested or 200 hours invested, and it's like, and I'm nowhere near that. Don't worry, Squatch. But I can see it. I can see how that can happen.
Yeah. What is the gameplay like? I'm kind of curious because I probably won't get it, but it does seem like one of those games that I could get into.
It's a game that, so the only barrier of entry I would argue for Elden Ring is the difficulty. Now, I would distinguish. I see a difference between unfair and fair difficulty. To me, fair difficulty is like what we grew up with on Nintendo games, like Castlevania or something. Whereas
is it like 80s level difficult? Because that's almost not even fun.
You will die a lot. You absolutely will. But it's that kind of like Contra or Castlevania or Ninja Gaiden or any of these like old retro games. It's that level of difficulty where once you kind of understand what you need to be doing, it's very doable. It's just there can be a steep learning curve once you realize like you can't play this like a modern game. You gotta get back in touch with that 80s Nintendo mentality. But it's a game where, not even mentioning the bosses, like run-of-the-mill scrub enemies on the map, if you're not paying attention, they can get the upper hand and they can kill you no matter how far, no matter what kind of armor you've picked up, no matter how many levels you've gained, no matter what you're doing. Everything is dangerous on some level. It's a fantasy game. It's very much like if you're like me and you grew up with Dungeons and Dragons and stuff, it's that. It's you're dropped into a enormous map, full diverse map with swamps and snowy mountains and forests and castles and all this stuff. It's populated by really amazing. I would say this from an art perspective, amazing creature design. Like
Okay.
really, really interesting, well done armor and monsters, and the castles look cool. Everything just looks really neat. It's very, very polished. And you just set off trying to, tear your way through this world and find, and it's all the trappings of D&D. You find magic weapons and interesting characters to talk to, and there's witches and salesmen and strange people who might double cross you, and hidden secrets and lore. It's just, if you're into that kind of thing, man, you can really get lost in that. It's a lot of fun. And it's single player primarily. But what's fun about it, the games in this series, they allow, so you'll be in the game and you see, like, there's a trap maybe in a labyrinth. You can leave a little note on the ground that says, like, trap right or trap ahead, or look out for ambush or whatever. And so when you're playing, you'll see these little glowing white messages on the ground, and you click them and trap ahead or wrong enemy ahead or whatever. So you can leave these very simple messages for the other players, but that also opens you up to, there's people out there who just like to mislead, and they'll say, like, weak foe ahead, and you're like, oh, now you've learned, like, we'll see, but like they're just
Sorry, you might want to mute me. I have a delivery.
I didn't understand the last 2 minutes of that because of
there we
the
go.
dog, but-
Yeah, you can just pass messages. You can pass fake messages. There's also an online element where you can do player versus player cooperation or combat. I don't really mess around with that. I'm also old school, where I prefer solitary gaming experiences too.
I'm old school in that if I'm going to play other people, I want them to be on the couch with me.
Yes.
I'm not interested in playing some 13-year-old kid who's going to just
Right.
use racial epithets.
Who's going to just scream in my ear.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Or usually my main reason for avoiding online is, especially as, look, it was different in high school and college, where I could just sit and anytime I wasn't at school, I was playing a video game. But
Right.
now, like, I don't get the kind of time to play video games like I did when I was younger. And it's tough to go online, like to play Halo or something. And there's some 16-year-old who's playing this thing 9 hours a day.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not fun, like, I mean, it's good for him. I'm not like against it, but it's like, that's not, so if I can play with friends who are of a similar skill level, then it's fine. But I don't want to go online with these people who are doing this every day all the time. And
There's not some kind of ranking.
There is, but like I found that it's not. There almost needs to be negative rankings in things like that, where it's like, guys, I haven't played this game in 3 years. Like, I need to be lumped in with like the girlfriends that are being sucked into playing this. Like, that's about the tier I need to be playing Halo at. Like, people who are just it's like I used to be good at this, but this is way out of practice.
That's funny. I am looking for a file that doesn't seem to exist. This doesn't make any sense at all. I have the animation of this thing, so I know I did it. I have like a rendered animated file, but then the actual like After Effects file seems to have completely disappeared. It's like nowhere. I'm very confused right now.
Josh, you're unmuted. You're.
Oh, sweet. Awesome.
If the dogs go bananas again, I will.
Yeah. They are some banana welding dogs for sure. They tend to do that. No, it's like whenever we get a delivery.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's all over.
It was especially chaotic when we had the mother-in-law living with us for a little bit, because she's visiting California. And so her dog was here, and her dog was like a barker. And then we have like two here that are barkers. And so it was just like what was the game show that Bob Barker was on?
Price is Right.
So it was like a Price is Right scenario where we had a lot of barkers. That was the I'm here all day. I'm just saying.
That was a great payoff for that joke.
Trying my trying my hand here.
You'll notice he's going to try all these dad jokes on your stream. And
I noticed that. I noticed that, like these, and if I imagine if any of them kill, then he can.
Yeah, you're going to be my dry run.
He's workshopping. He's workshopping.
Josh is the guy in real life where you're going to hear that repetition of the phrase or the joke.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to be like, does that joke make you want to donate money? Okay, I'm just going to. I'll just write that.
You got a pretty big donation the other day.
Yeah, I've been getting super chats. It's been fun.
That's nice.
I like that. I like making money while doing art. That's kind of half the fun of the thing. So I'm gonna try that, but who knows? I think the live streaming thing is. Well, Gary, you were talking about it too, and I think that's a worthwhile thing because like half of our challenge as artists is like, first off, like we need to make the work, right? So it's like you have Dinosaurs versus Mars bots. That has to be like goal number one is like, how do you get this thing done, right?
Right.
And then it's like, okay, we also like being current and being like present on social media and stuff like that. So it's like that conundrum of how do you generate content while creating without causing a loss in the creation time? Because I don't think any of us have the end goal of being like YouTube superstars who don't produce work. You know, right? Like
my content would be a lot better if that were the case.
Yeah, and I was gonna say just like I don't know, like I don't think like I didn't get into art to like get huge on YouTube. So it's like, how do we manage to make content and then also make our art? And I feel like live streaming must be like somewhere close to the solution for that, you know?
I'm hoping this works out for me because it seems like it should be a pretty easy thing just to add to my process. But as I think anyone who's followed me for any length of time knows, I'm really protective of my creative process. It's partly because, and the excuse I use a lot for why I'm not doing more promotion and doing more edited videos and all that is like I need to focus 100% on the work.
Yeah.
And if I don't focus 100% on the work, I believe it will suffer. So that's part of it. But I think the other part of it, and this gets a little more esoteric, and I don't expect necessarily like fans or the audience to really understand or care about this. I'm also protecting my individual experience of creating. And I'm very careful about what am I introducing to it that will make it less gratifying and fulfilling, like that, because it needs to be, I need to put out good work, but I also need to have a good experience doing it, and so anytime it's like, well, you could start doing this, and usually it's in the form of, you could be doing more like promoting on social media. It's like, I have to say, as soon as I hear that, it's like being told, it's like someone gave me a cancer diagnosis. Like, it just sounds so terrible. Where it's like, I just can't, like, and that will bum me out. I remember something I've never outgrown. When I was a kid, I've told this story before. I had an art teacher. He was asking if I wanted to have a career in the arts. And I said no, because I didn't want to be a starving artist. And he said, oh, no, that's not a thing. Like, if you want to do gallery shows, maybe.
Yeah.
But there's art everywhere. If you want to make art, you can get a job. Like, look at the floor tiles, look at these book covers, look at, the wallpaper. Like, someone's making all this stuff. There's always room for a working artist if you're willing to do it. And then, like, trying to pep talk me, but in fact, it had the opposite reaction where it's like, that sounds even worse. Like, just doing art just for money? Like a prostitute? Like, I mean, I was just so appalled. Now, I've outgrown that a lot. My day job is an art job. But I still am very sensitive to like, if this feels like too much of a task, it's not worth it to me anymore. Like, I'm doing this. There's an individual experience to this that results in a public experience, and I'm trying to protect both halves. So that was my little bit, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. It's something I consider a lot because, and I was saying this on stream a couple days ago, but it's like I do think it's worth people like assessing, like, what is your goal in doing comics? Like, if your goal is to make a bunch of money, like, I would pick a different field, like, period. Like, I just would. Yeah, there's like an occasional person who makes a really good living doing comics. Generally, you know, if you want to pander, like, then you're gonna have you might have a better time of it, like with pandering, in comics. But if you're gonna pander to make art, like, I would pick a better thing, like pander in, like, I don't know, I would pander in action sports, or pander in, like, even action sports is notoriously bad paying, but I'm just saying, like, it's still better paying than comics. Like, comics are like this uniquely not great thing for like money. So if you're like, to me, if you're gonna spend time doing comics, you should be spending time making the best comics you can make. And if you're not doing that, I mean, obviously with an exception, like, you can't just end up in that perfection loop where you're trying to make like, you know, perfect things, because perfect things just don't exist. And you could end up in that like nightmare trap. But my point is, yeah, it was for me a really waking realization for me to be like, if I'm going to spend time doing comics, I'm going to be spending time doing comics I want to make. Like, and they need to be, you know, uncompromising works that I can feel are good works, because the likelihood of them taking off is so slim that I feel like I'd rather be proud of what I'm doing with that, because I already have my day job doing art, you know. And for that, it's like, I'm like, yes, I'll make that change. Yes, I'll make the color whatever you want it to be. But this is my this is my art window where it's like, no, this is going to be what I want it to be, you know? So yeah, I relate.
100%. And like, and you know, this is something I have talked about in other places. Like, I'm very privileged in the fact that my comics are not how I'm paying my rent. So I'm unburdened with it. It makes it actually easier for me.
Yeah.
To be sort of an ethical creator. I mean, for lack of better terms, because I don't have difficult ethical decisions to make, or moral decisions about like, what do I want to do and what do I want my work to be? Like, you know, I don't have to hand wring over it. It's going to be exactly what I want it to be. And I don't have to make any compromises, and I don't have to worry about what's my market and could I sell 3 more comics if I say this in a stream, or if I do that. Like, I don't have to worry about any of that, which is nice. I'm very lucky. Every angry, sad artist I see in Artist Alley doing commissions they don't want to be doing. Every artist I see doing a commission of drawing Catwoman in a thong, like, and hating their lives, you know, because this, like, I feel for them, but it's because they need to make rent, and I don't have that burden, and it frees me creatively, you know. It allows me to, it can be whatever it wants to be, what I want it to be. I can approach it however I want to approach it. I can promote it however I want to promote it. And it keeps the process very clean and healthy, I think. Like, so that's why also, again, I'm very protective of it. It's like, I just want to be very careful if I'm making changes to the process.
Yeah.
What are the changes? Why am I making those changes? Are they actually serving me and the audience, or just the audience, or just me? Like I kind of want to walk through that process, which is something I'll probably talk about in a future live stream, why I don't do live draws, because that gets into a lot of this, where it's like, but the basic thing is like, I don't love doing it. And so, and I can talk about that more, why, but it's just, I don't like it. And that, fortunately, is all the reason I need. Now, other creators, like, you know, if they like it, then obviously they should do it. If they don't like it, but they feel like they need to serve, like, you know, they'll just sit and bite their tongue and do it. But I'm not going to do that. So.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think that's one of the reasons I like the live stream format. And there are definitely elements where it's like, I'm not gonna, I think if you try to, you have to kind of draw a line and establish rules for yourself. And then also like, yeah, if you have a way to promote, because like, I don't think, to clarify to people, I don't think Gary or I are saying like you shouldn't promote your work and to
Right.
have commercial interest in your work. Or like for me, like for instance, if I can live stream while I'm drawing and somebody wants to kick me some money while I'm doing it, I will take that money. I appreciate it, and that is going to help with the process. But it does make a difference when you're not super like, you don't have to rely on that.
Right.
That can kind of allow you some choices regarding like integrity or decisions of things like you may not want to do that you might be forced to do if you were sort of in a desperate moment.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's more kind of what we're talking about. And I do think it's important to like protect that process, but also try to think of ways like, because we are in the market of making books, it's like, okay, what are some ways we can promote these things so that people know about them, but like
Yeah.
don't come at a cost of our soul or the books,
Right. That's not going to hurt the process. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's, I think, one thing that, especially now after a few years of this, I've gotten pretty hardwired into my processes, that every decision like is towards what's going to result in the best work.
Yeah.
For me. I mean, best is, obviously there's best as a weird asterisk by it or quotes around it. The one that I'm most satisfied with, the one that I feel like that's the, not necessarily, I don't know what best means, but best I can do, the best realization of the idea that I had, so that's always in my head. So, which is, by the way, Squatch, why sometimes these comics take longer than you would hope, because could I double my drawing rate? I could. Would it look the way I want it to look? No.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, and I think I was talking to, I do think like it's sad to me that the finished not perfect thing, I don't know, I want to hear Corey's thoughts on this too, but it's like I feel like the finished not perfect thing is good for like people like Corey or myself who are like gonna most of the time, or you too, Gary, where it's like most of the time we're probably gonna be more likely to maybe spend, like we might push in the direction a little too much of like the caring about the work a little, almost like too much, to where we might need occasionally somebody to come by and be like, hey, that's good enough, like
Good
on to
enough,
the next
yeah.
page, right?
Yeah.
But I do think like the downside of that being like a huge trend online is just the idea that like it might be actually good to try perfect before finishing, like for some people, I think, especially at the beginning when you're starting out. Like it's not bad to like actually try to kind of achieve something ambitious and like kind of push the bar a little bit,
At least for myself personally, and whenever you get into process stuff, like that gets into the like, look, I would be reluctant to give any kind of, but at least for me personally, I think the sweet spot is as good as it can be without stymieing yourself to the point that you're not finishing work. So like, I could sit and draw a page and say like, not good enough, and keep redrawing it and redrawing it and redrawing it. And if it never gets done, that's toxic perfectionism. But if I can say, I'm going to get this page done as good as I can make it in the time that I have in this week, and I'm going to push as hard as I can, and even maybe risk being a little unhappy, knowing like it could be better, but I did it as good as I could in the time I had. That to me it's exhausting, but I personally wouldn't see that as bad perfectionism. I would see that as pushing for excellence.
Yeah.
Which you'll fall short of, but at least you've set that goal high, and I think that's the only way you can stretch is there's something one of the concept designers for at Lucasfilm said something once that I don't know, it always just stuck in there. Was he was saying that, you know, when a drawing is done when you've pushed it too far, like, and then you can roll it back a step. Like, and I liked that mentality of like, you need to absolutely exhaust. You need the goal should be you went too far, not short.
Yep.
You know, I would never want to look at one of my books, and believe me, like, I look at 75 now, it's like, wow, I would have drawn that a lot differently now, you know, and like, I'm assuming that will continue to happen as I work through this series. But I would much rather feel that way than to look at something and say, like, I could have done that better at the time, and I didn't because I wanted to go to a live show. Or I wanted to play Elden Ring for 10 more hours a week, or whatever the thing, you know, like that, I can't handle. What I can handle is like, I did as well as I could with the tools I had.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I will say, like, at least from my experience, it's like, I feel like that's the stuff I'm most proud of. There's a lot of art that I got paid really well to do that I could care less about, and I'm not like going to add to my portfolio. It's just not like it. Yeah. I mean, the pay was great, but like, that's it. And at the end of the day, you end up with what you end up at any job, where it's like, okay, cool, I get a paycheck, and hey, you know what? That's valuable. But it's like, if I'm trying to make stuff that has value for myself that's beyond just that paycheck, then I need to be pushing beyond that in my own expectations of the work too. And I really do. This isn't a prescriptive conversation, because this is, I think, more a descriptive conversation of, I think, where we're at, right?
Right.
But it's like, I have found in my own life that it is useless, especially when it comes to comics, to go about it any other way. Like, for myself, you know, it's just,
well, and that, and I've said this in past videos, and I'll keep saying it, that to me is the ultimate thing to pledge allegiance to, is like, are you finishing work? And whatever your I've said that, you know, I love that. I think I used the clip of it in one of my videos of, like, it's Jerry Seinfeld talking about like how he doesn't love process talk, because to him it doesn't matter how, like, we're all trying, his metaphor was, we're all trying to get to the island. Whether you parachute onto it or swim or canoe or ride a jet ski, I don't really care. Are you getting to the island? And like, to me, the equivalent of that is like, are you finishing your projects?
Yeah, I agree.
If you're finishing them, like, your process sounds good to me. You know, like, but like, maybe you can sit and fine tune, but I can't tell you how to find, like, you know, you can work on that.
Yeah.
But like, ultimately, it's like, are you finishing work? And that's more and more. And I try to be nice about it. I don't want to be a dick, but that's more and more the frustration I'll feel when I'm running into artists where they're talking about a lot of projects they're never getting done.
Yeah.
Like, I would rather read a terrible, terrible comic or book, or look at a terrible painting that you finished and you hung up, or you published, or you sold, you're selling in Artist Alley, than hear about your amazing project that's a pile of notes in your bedroom.
Yes.
F you. I don't have time for that. I can't, like, get something done, get something out, start producing. Now you're in my club.
Yeah.
My club is finished work. You know,
yeah.
like, that's,
I agree.
I don't know what your club is. Your club is like, you like the identity of being creative, but you're not.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is it's a safer identity when you're not doing it, right? Because, like,
super safe, because every idea is great. Everyone has an idea for the great American novel. Everyone has an idea for a great movie script or comic.
Yeah.
Everyone can picture a good painting.
Yeah.
Do it.
Most artists too, given enough time, can create stuff that's just incredible, like stunningly unbelievable. But can you do, 27 pages of that on a deadline? Like, that's like the kind of challenge. So it's like, I think there's this fine line where it's like, you have to find, be in the club of, like, making stuff. Don't be too precious, in the sense that, like, you're just going to sit on that, unbelievable project for like 20,000 years, and then it's really just as good as any idea. It's an idea, it just hasn't been realized and great. I mean, but it's like, also, don't be the person who's just crapping out pages and could care less about the quality, right? Like that's,
Yeah.
I think it's that like, it's that fine balance of like, and I think both sides of that equation need to hear, you know, different things. Like the people who are like in our camp probably need to hear more often, like finished is better than perfect, right?
Right.
I think people who are still, especially learning, you know, it might be like try making perfect and then finish, like, because it's like if you're just starting out, I don't know if like I don't know, I'd like learn how to like draw people a little bit first, you know. I don't know,
Yeah.
I'm rambling, but
No,
it's an
I think
interesting
it's
nuance to me of
well,
like
and
the
you
people who
can't go out
glam onto
and
that, I think often are like the wrong people are glamming onto that advice where it's like, no, you need to like do perfect before finished, right? I don't know.
it's going to be, I think the creative process, at least again, my experience, is figuring out how to manage those competing interests. How can it be as good as you can make it while actually producing finished work? You know, like, and so, but I think finished is like, that's the easier first obtainable goal, is like get stuff out there. And now work on refine. You're going to be refining your whole life. You're going to be getting better and better your whole life. But like, you can start finishing things today, you know? So like, why, like, so might as well get a jump on that one. Cameron, he had two questions I wanted to get in there. One was, do you think finished not perfect mindset is good or bad for someone who hasn't released anything before? I would say, based on what I just said, if you've never released anything before, finishing is more important than perfect.
Yes.
You know? Or even the best you can do. Like, just get something out. If you've never done it before, I think get in the habit of producing, following through on a project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the advantages of like art school or whatever, or like taking classes in art, is the idea of like deadlines for assignments. And here's, I mean, the harsh truth like that I used to tell students too when I taught college and stuff was like, a lot of people would be like, well, I mean, deadlines and grades, they're arbitrary. And yeah, that's 100% true. But the valuable lesson you're learning is how to work on a deadline. Because perfect work that doesn't hit a deadline, 9 out of 10 times, like there might be that 1 out of 10 times where somebody's just like, you know what, this is brilliant. It's better than what we expected. This is amazing. We're good with it. But most of the time it's like, we needed this for an event, or we're a publisher and we just like booked out the scheduling time with like the distributor and all of these different interests. And now we have to move the world for your art being late. Like that's not acceptable. So
I hated that even back in college. I remember like the day where you'd finish your work, you'd pin it up on the wall and you would do group critique. There was always some guy who had like a third of a drawing done, or a third of a project done. That was the part that's done is beautiful, but it's not done. And like, I always silently judged the professors who would be like, there's really beautiful work. Like, give that a pass. And it's like, look, I could have made my part even more beautiful if I was fine turning in something a third done. Like, this is an F. This is a 0. It's not done. Like, you know, like I'm sorry. You know, I don't care how great it could have been. If, you know, like, it drives me crazy.
I mean, I will say I'd rather see, and this is an art in general too, I'd rather see like a brilliant failure than like a meh failure. Like, to me, like if somebody gets into doing comics and they don't end up finishing a comic, but it's like absurdly genius, like the 4 panels they got finished, I'd rather see that unfinished than like the I spent 20 minutes and this is hard cop out. But I agree. It's like, yeah, at the end of the day, like if you can't finish something, it's kind of like playing a video game where you're just playing the same level over and over again until you perfect that level, but you never beat the game. You never play the rest of the game. So you might be the best person in the universe at like 5 seconds of a video game. What is the point of that? Right? Like at some point you got to kind of get in the game, you know.
You can play the opening guitar of a song, but that's it. Just those first, that's great, but
yeah. What do you, I don't know. What are your thoughts on it, Corey? Like, do you find, because you're teaching college students currently, you know, it's like, do you find that, that like your students, do they struggle more with like the kind of needing to learn how to complete, or how to like see something through and spend the time that it would take to actually make it good, you know?
So I think you got to take into account initiative in the face of ambiguity is a skill that we often overlook as older creatives.
Okay.
And so the idea of like, what do you do when you can do anything is so terrifying and stifling to a young mind that that it's really hard. And so I think one of the worst assignments that you can give somebody at the beginning, at like a freshman college level, like a 100 level, is you can make anything you want, ready, go.
Yeah.
Right. But that's one of the best assignments that you can give like a junior or a senior in college, because that's the huge problem. And so it's so situational, right? If you say you can do anything, it's almost like you don't even have enough like experience in life to know what your choices are. You know, it's like asking your 2-year-old what they want for dinner. Like, they can remember 3 things. They don't know,
Right.
you know, they whatever. But like, you ask like, one of my in-laws who's a foodie what they want for dinner, and that's a real, like, you could eat anywhere you want or we'll make anything you want, and that's a real choice, where they're gonna weigh thousands of different variables and things. And so that's the first thing, is very situational, right? And so if there's a clear assignment and a clear direction to go, then I would say focus on perfection, right? Because most students, they don't even know what else to work on. Like, there are people that are willing and have the time and are willing to use the time and put in the effort, but like, they're just staring at it because it's like, oh, I don't even know what else I could do. They've reached the edge of their envelope as far as their knowledge of what could be refined or what could be improved or what could be redone.
Mm-hmm.
And so striving for perfection in that instance is like, okay, well, let's look at professional work and look at my work, and let's close that gap. What are they doing that I'm not doing? What am I doing that they're not doing? And in those little micro choices of like, oh, I see when they're using a tapering line, or I see when they're shadowing something, I see when they're not shadowing something. Yeah. That close, those incremental things close that gap. On the other hand, if you're more in a situation where it's less of an assignment and more of a personal project, I would say that finishing is way more important than perfection. And so it depends on what you're trying to do at the time, because I have seen people noodle forever. They just get constantly in that little spiral of incremental changes and improvements, and they never ship anything. And so it's such a situational thing to say, like, it's good, this is 100% the time, the advice for everyone, or even to say this is the advice for everyone in this situation, I think there's so much more nuance in it. And so I would look at what are you struggling with? If your work looks like garbage, then you should shoot for perfection, and that'll get you better, right?
Yeah.
If your work is good or goodish or whatever, but you haven't ever finished anything, I would go finish 50 things in the next 2 months, whatever those are, panels, pages, stickers, designs, icons, like I would do, and so I have 2 different things that I tell students based on kind of my assessment where they are. And one is, you need to like spend 60 hours over the next 2 months, like really getting good at this thing, this concept or this skill or whatever, right? And the other one is, you need to go as fast as you possibly can and finish like 3 of these every day for the next 30 days. And it kind of depends on where they are in their journey. And I would say that it's not like a linear thing where, like, once you've achieved finishing, then you can move on to perfection. It's like for all of us, it's a cyclical thing. And maybe that's just because I'm projecting my own experience onto everybody else. But for me personally, I don't have a problem finishing things, and I don't have a problem refining things generally. But in any particular stage in my life, or in my artistic journey, I might have a problem with one of those things. And so that's the thing that I need to focus on.
Right. Yeah.
So I finish stuff all the time, and I'm constantly trying to improve what stuff looks like and feels like and the concept of it and those types of things. But it's kind of like, I heard this analogy one time of balance in martial arts. It's not that somebody achieves perfect balance and then they're done, but they have learned to understand when they're off balance, and they know how to make that micro adjustment to get back onto balance. And so that's what I would say with those two pieces is look at your life, and you make the adjustments that you need to make on an hour-to-hour basis. Like, do you need to make this better? Because probably. But do you also need to finish it? Probably. But which one is going to be more important in this hour that you're working? That's where professional thinking.
Yeah, and it's that, I think. I mean, that's ultimately going to be the journey, right? I mean, I find that it's and it's something that's an area that I think about a lot, but I wouldn't even begin to know how to talk about it in a useful way to people, because but one thing I think about a lot, and I hope I'm not butchering it, but like it was something I was talking about once I've talked about my girlfriend before. She's a classical musician, and we were talking about, I don't know how it came up, but she talked about something like the concept of sound, whether you have a good concept of what something should be sounding like.
Yes.
You're not producing that. And I found that totally relatable, like this idea, like I think it's important if you're really trying to push your work to be able to picture what the good work could be. You need to be able to visualize something better than you can do before you can get there.
Yes.
And that's, I think, how you can do what, Corey, you're talking about, where you realize, like, what do I need to work on? I think it's being able to look at your own work and see the deficiencies, or visualize an ideal work and see the difference between that and what you just did, and figure out, now this is where I need to apply my attention. That's a very hard thing. I don't know how you learn that. Like, it's a very complicated, and some people are really bad at it. Like, they can't.
Yeah.
How could this be better? They don't know what to say.
There's two ways to learn that. Two ways that I'm aware of, and it's a really important skill, because what modern consumption of entertainment and art is 100% the wrong thing to do to learn how to have that vision. So the first thing that you do, like you're looking at like like if you look at Pinterest, Instagram, TikTok or whatever, the idea is a mass consumption on a very shallow level of tons of different things. But what you actually need to do is like, imagine a 20-year-old standing for 20 minutes in front of a single painting in a museum. It's almost impossible to imagine.
I can't imagine it. No.
Right? It's because they have been trained, and this isn't their fault. This is society has trained them to spend 2 minutes scanning 40 things, right? Or to sit there for an hour on the toilet and scan Reddit or Tumblr, and go through 100 or 200 images, and spend about less than 4 seconds per image, I would imagine. And so the first thing that I tell students to do is I say, and I have them do reverse engineer posts. And so I say, what you want to do is I want you to choose 3 things. It can be any 3 principles of aesthetics, whether it be design, composition, value, whatever it is. Choose 3 things, and I want you to spend 10 minutes per thing writing as much as you possibly can about how this professional work used that principle. You write as much as you possibly can for 10 minutes. Don't stop.
Almost like a meditation exercise. Focus on this. Drill down on this. Keep staying with this. Don't.
And don't use the words like. I like or I don't like, because I don't care. You
Yeah.
tell me what works or what doesn't work within that principle. You do that 3 times. If you do that once a day, if you spend 30 minutes a day doing that for a month, you are going to build a visual library in your head that will serve you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You know,
So that, go ahead.
Mapping onto that though, and also with the music analogy, and I don't know if I'm off on this. The friends I've known who are professional musicians, it's one of the entry things to get in a music program. Is like before you've trained in like the formalities or anything like that, like there's like a listening test. I don't know if they still do this, but it's like they want to know that you actually have an ear. And it's like something that you can train and you can tune, but if you don't have, you're kind of screwed when it comes to music. And it's similar to like a basic rhythm test where it's like, can you clap on a 2 and a 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1,
on a
2,
similar
3,
note,
4. Or can you clap on a 1 and a 3? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? If you can't do that and you don't have the rhythm, you're going to have trouble in a dance program or a music program. If you don't have like it doesn't have to be a great ear, but it has to be an ear where if you hear an off note and I'm not talking a subtle off note. I'm saying like if you heard 3 chords on a guitar and one was discordant, you'd be able to hear it. If you can't hear discord, it's going to be really hard to train that because it's a weird, like that's that weird mystical part of art where it's like there are untrainable things. I don't know. What your thoughts?
So hold.
Two reactions to that.
I want to push back just a little bit after.
Look, I want to just slip one little, and then I'll wait for after you for the second one. But the first thing Gordon Ramsay said once, I don't know if this is true or not, but he claimed that a way they would evaluate cooks in their kitchen was like they would have them scramble an egg. And that was sort of the thing, like just to see them to see how someone does a very simple task, like, and which sounds almost like what you're describing, like it will tell you a lot about if this person's even like in the caliber that they're looking for. But okay, go ahead.
My pushback on that is I find that to be a very useful practice at a high level because you can't, as a university or as a voice teacher or whatever, you can't take on everybody because then your program gets so watered down that it doesn't work.
Yeah, but for a BFA program or something.
But I don't find that useful on an individual level because you can learn those things if you want to. And so if you want to become a guitarist and you are, you can't hear the thing or have the rhythm, then those are the things that you need to spend the next 5 years working on.
Yes.
And if you've got the fight to fight through that, then that's okay. But I do find it a little bit, and I know that you're not saying this, Josh, because I know you personally.
Oh, I might be. I'm going to lead us.
No,
so
but
I totally might be.
I'm saying the most radical position.
But what I'm saying is I find it a bit elitist to have the idea of like artists are born, musicians are born, and then they go from there. You know what I mean? And so the idea that there's some sort of to ignore that there are genetics at play is kind of stupid. Like Michael Phelps was built to be a swimmer.
Right. Not everyone could swim like Michael Phelps. Right.
Yeah.
But no matter how much you practice.
Right.
Yeah, and like even with my height, right? I'm not going to be an NBA player. Like I'm just I'm not even a short person, and I'm too short to play in the NBA. Like probably.
Because you got to be a genetic mutant to
exactly.
Right.
But having said that, I think a lot of people miss the point of that, which is like there's one Michael Phelps. And he's already taken that spot, and so you can't have it. But that doesn't mean that, if you don't have the natural width and length and abnormally large hands and feet that he has, that doesn't mean that you can't be like a top exceptional swimmer. Given any body shape or size, it just means that you have to look at what you've got and see where. And so, like I have realized it as I've been teaching that I have an unusual ability to see the mechanics of things, and it's difficult for me to teach that because in my mind, when I look at a fish in a fish tank, I immediately start to look at where the joint is on the jaw and what happens to the flap of the skin as the mouth opens.
I don't know what you're talking about, Corey. You cannot possibly look at a fish and understand the inside of it. You just can't know that.
Oh no!
I'm sorry.
Oh no!
But what
Once
I'm saying is,
Gary's live stream ruined on the very first
there you go.
show.
Sorry.
But I had assumed that everybody, you know, like looks at clouds and tries to figure out why you can see the cloud even though there's no lines. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that's not something that everybody does. But that is something that everybody could train themselves to do. And I have a project.
You've trained yourself to do it, and I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong, that you're looking at things that way because you've learned that you're breaking things down. How would I have to draw or animate?
Yeah.
You know, you're
I
approaching life in that way now.
If I'm being honest, I had a natural inclination towards that before.
See, and I was always interested in I've talked about my number one art passion is life drawing, figure drawing. Like that's my favorite. And I think I've always been a little fascinated by like anatomy and how bodies are put together and skeletons and I think it was a natural extension. I think I'm somewhere. I appreciate both of what both of you guys have said about this. I do think talent is, like most of us, I think overemphasized when it comes to ability. But I'm not in the camp. I do see what to me is sort of a radical position now and then on the interwebs that talent is irrelevant and it's all just hard work. And that I do unfortunately disagree with. Like, I think there is an X factor with people and it does make a difference. Now, I don't think it's the majority. I don't think that's the bulk of it. I think it's a little help. But to me, an analogy I heard once, Jeff Goldblum, of all people, was being interviewed. And he's, as you know, he's an actor, but he's also a musician. He's like a jazz pianist, I think. And someone was asking him, can anyone, learn how to act? Can anyone learn how to play the piano, et cetera, et cetera? And he said no. And he's like, it's like dancing. Like, you can learn the steps, you can practice and practice and practice, but some people just have it's maybe just the genetic thing, the way they're wired, just a better innate sense of rhythm and how their bodies control over their bodies and how to move and things like that. And you're never going to get that last leg. You might get 95% of the way, but there's some people who just have a natural, they're blessed in whatever way, you want to say,
but
it's just a little more attainable for them.
Yeah.
I definitely fall into that camp. I think
you're talking about an average person comparing themselves to any niche activity at the top of the game. You know what I mean? And that's and so
I'm thinking about what's achievable.
Right.
For the average person is, can anyone be Michael Jordan? No. Can anyone be Rembrandt? No. You can get better.
Right. But here's my problem. My problem with that type of statement is I don't know how applicable or I like utility. And so what is the utility of that statement? The utility of that statement is either I take that and say, well, I'm not going to do that, so I give up. Or I've decided that I'm predisposed to be that, so I'm going to. The utility of it isn't, hold on, let me finish this thought. The utility of it isn't super useful, because if I were to get to 95%, that would be a huge achievement.
It's still great.
And so I might not be able to close that last 5%, but I still think, being able to get to the top of something that you want to do and become the best that you can do it, I think is a very useful thing. So from a utility standpoint, I try to stay away from the predisposition thing, because it's not useful. It's kind of like the facticity. Right. It's kind of like the facticity of of existentialism. There are facts. Like I am 5'6" and I will never be taller than that. That is a fact of my life. But the value that I choose to ascribe to that fact is up to me. And so I can look at that and somebody mentioned Muggsy Bogues. and Spud Webb both played in the NBA, or both under 5'6".
Right.
They didn't look at the facticity of their life and have that be something that stopped them from
Probably a
doing
lot
that.
of people were like telling them like that's not going to
Yeah,
I
yeah.
100% agree with that, and I would say that in the grand scheme of things, 100% talent is not as important as the principle that you can always be doing better.
Yes.
You can improve. You can improve. Like, rather than worry about some grand cosmic scale of best to worst, think about, can you be better than you are today? Always yes. I think that's the more important journey and the more important thing to concentrate on. You know?
Yeah.
And just really quick, and then I'll let Josh talk. That's where I think the idea of talent comes in. Is I have heard talent described as nothing more than an interest that gets you past the hard part of learning.
Yeah.
And so, for example, for me, I tried to play the guitar, I tried to play the drums, I tried to play the ukulele. I wanted to be a musician, but I honestly didn't want to be a musician as much as I wanted to be an artist.
Yeah.
And so you could call that a predisposition, you could call that talent, you could call that whatever. But the fact of the matter is that I put, 100,000 hours more into art than I did into the dozens of hours I put in music.
I want to interject real quickly, and then we'll finally let Josh talk. I wanted, but just you said something interesting. I think part of the secret sauce is what kind of adversity you enjoy versus what is discouraging for you.
Yeah.
And I think this could almost be a whole conversation about play, like what you consider play.
Right.
Let's talk about Elden Ring. A lot of people pick up Elden Ring. It's like, this is hard. This sucks. I'm not having fun. And it is hard, but that's actually fun for me. But there are other hard things, like, for example, I don't know, running. I hate running. That's not fun for me. Yeah. I think sometimes when we talk about talent, we're talking about when you're trying to get better at something, is this challenge enjoyable to you or not? Getting better at drawing is fun for me. Not doing a great drawing, even though it's frustrating, it's fun to try and get better. But then other things not. Sometimes that, I think, is mistaken as, or read as talent. You're willing to enjoy this difficult process. And talents are like, well, what kind of difficulty do you like? What kind of difficulty do you find enjoyable?
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing I want to clarify is, first off, I do think there are things that some people are just innately better at. And unfortunately, that's true. I agree with you on the utility of it. In the sense of here's the thing. First off, if you're a college instructor, you have no place telling anyone whether they are meant to do something or not. Right. I've heard a million artists who have stories where they gave up art for 5 years or 10 years, and they're incredible now. But because some asshole instructor or teacher or
Corey,
manager,
Corey got discouraged.
Yeah. So I want to be really clear that that's not what my intention of bringing up the music test thing was. It's just that there are some people who have they could train for 20 years and they're never going to be able to clap in time to a song, because rhythm is a weird
guy right here. I could never.
Yeah, it's an innate thing, and you can kind of learn it, but it's really hard when it comes to timing and rhythm. Or it comes to an ear for an off note. If you literally can't hear, you can try to learn how to hear, but it's a really hard hurdle to overcome. And I'd say with art, your biggest hurdle, and this is something only people can internally map for themselves, right? Is if you don't have taste, which is that weird arbitrary thing, it's going to be hard to get better because you're not going to have a gauge for what's better and what's worse. Now your eye is going to develop. You're going to get a better idea of color theory and why things work, right? But it's that is a hard thing to train, is training people to have that initial idea of I like this image. How was it made? Just the ability to select that image as opposed to something terribly done. That's the hard part. But I agree, on a utility standpoint, I do think it's helpful for people to think they can achieve anything. I've mentioned this. I have a really good friend who is now a magician at the Magic Castle. And he was born without a hand, you know?
Wow.
So like he learned how to do magic and is now doing sleight of hand on a level where he can like perform at the Magic Castle with like the best magicians doing sleight of hand. If he had listened to people who were just like, hey, you only have one hand, it's going to be kind of tough to do magic.
Yeah. Like,
Or like he also is an incredible guitarist. How do you do that with one hand? I wouldn't even know how to start, but he didn't.
I can't wrap my brain around.
Yeah, so he invented like a strap that he could tie a pick to and like use it. Like he never would let people telling him you can't be a reason he didn't. And I'm a big believer in that too. But I do think like not everyone can do everything. And that's just a fact as well. And I do think it's like it can be unhelpful to kind of pretend that's the case sometimes.
Right.
In a university setting, it doesn't have a place. But
and what you're talking about is really interesting because you're talking about limited resources, right?
Yeah.
And so if I have 100 hours a month to help people get better at something, and I can help a group of people that suck at something suck slightly less, or a group of people that are halfway decent at something get really, really good. If I can take somebody from a 3 to 2, or I can take somebody from a 5 to a 9, I'm going to go with the 5 before I'm going to go with the 3. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the idea of competitive entry programs, is that they're saying it's not that you can't learn it. It's that we have limited resources.
Right.
And we're going to take people from a 5 to a 9.
Yeah, we're not interested in making people competent. We're interested in making people excel.
Excellent. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really good quote that goes along with what both of you just said. Have you guys heard the Ira Glass quote?
Yeah. It's so good.
It's like you've heard it, Gary?
No, well, I thought you were just saying, have you heard of Ira Glass? And I was like,
okay.
Yeah.
So there's this quote where he says, "Nobody tells this to people who are beginners. I wish someone told me. All of us who do creative work, we get into it because we have good taste.
Mm-hmm.
But there is this gap. For the first couple of years, you make stuff. It's just not that good. It's trying to be good. It has potential, but it's not. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, is still killer. And your taste is why your work disappoints you. A lot of people never get past this phase. They quit. Most people I know who do interesting creative work went through years of this. We know our work doesn't have this special thing that we want it to have. We all go through this. And if you are just starting out, or if you're still in this phase, you got to know it's normal. And the most important thing that you can do is do a lot of work. Put yourself on a deadline so that every week you will finish one story. It's only by going through a volume of work that you will close that gap, and that your work will be good as your ambitions. And I took longer to figure this out than anyone I've ever met. It's going to take a while. It's normal to take a while. You've just got to fight your way through it."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And and I think it's important because I also think that, like artists can kind of forget the cool, like this is where I think the elitist thing is kind of helpful. It's like, if you're an artist, I think it's important to realize that you're not the norm. It's not an average everyday career. And there is something special about what you do. That's a specialized trade that actually does require some talent as well as time. And so it's like, kind of like, I would hate to think that like, I mean, Gary, like your girlfriend's a good example. It's like, there's a lot of people who can learn to play like, like a woodwind or a stringed instrument or something like that. There's like a much smaller amount of people who could play for a state or a county or like a regional orchestra. Like it's a different like level. And it would be a bummer to me if we're in a world where like somebody couldn't appreciate the difference between like a person who's going to pick up a fiddle and play killer. And you know what? There's some people who maybe could play fiddle in a pub better than any orchestral arrangement. Right. But my point is, there's just differences in talent and skill. And I think it's important, especially when you're in it, to realize like there is value and a uniqueness about art. and there are levels to it, and we should admire the levels to it, right? Like
Totally.
to,
I would
you know,
say what I would,
yeah.
and I think you guys, anyone who's doing this will appreciate this, but I think maybe someone who's considering doubling down on being a creative, or who's not a creative at all and just enjoys art, maybe they don't appreciate that doing art and being a creative is unique and unusual, but I think even more so, the lifestyle of being a creative is what's unusual. Because I think if we lived in a world where, like, let's say 4,500 years ago, where we're a bunch of hunter-gatherers, and when we're not out hunting, we're just sitting and making pottery and weaving things and sculpting things, like everyone's making art all the time. It's not that interesting. It's not that unusual. It's not that remarkable. And some people are better than others, but it's not that extraordinary. What's kind of extraordinary is where we live in this year, in this country, in this society. To stake out and say, like, I'm going to do this thing that's not being an accountant, or not being, I'm not working at the return desk at Target. Like, I'm going to do something that there's not a clear path for. I'm not going to walk the established path. I'm going to cut through the woods. That's what's sort of I think,
initiative in the face of ambiguity.
Experience. What's that?
Initiative in the face of ambiguity.
Yes.
That is the one
That's
thing.
What's distinguishing us more than any kind of
right.
inherent, like, X-Men quality. Like, we have this weird like art gene. I think what's distinguishing the community, everyone in the chat, everybody that we normally are crossing paths with, is that we were willing at some point in our lives to say, like, I'm going to do the hard thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna do this thing that just kind of like learning how to draw. Like, I'm gonna do this thing that's frustrating, but I'm gonna do it. And it's not easy, and a lot of people aren't going to support me, but I'm gonna do it anyway. That's kind of the thing that I think is the community, more than whatever kind of talent, whatever that means.
Yeah.
I have an honest question for you guys, because it's something that I struggle with as a professor. Josh, you mentioned that there's never a situation where you should tell somebody that they should do something else. And I wonder about that, because higher education is so expensive, both in a monetary and in a time way. I will never look at the quality of somebody's work and say you should do something else, but I will look at the amount of effort that they put into things and what they're willing to do.
Yes.
And I will often have a conversation with them and say, I'm not going to make this decision for you, but do you like this? Is this something that you want to do? Because it seems to me like you might not be cut out for this.
Yes.
And I wonder, is that a bad thing? Because I don't want to be the professor that's like the example of like, well, that guy told me I couldn't do it, and look at me today. But I do want to be the guy who's like, you know what? I was doing this thing because I felt like I wanted to do it, but then I realized that I didn't want to do it, and I saved myself $30,000 worth of student loans by becoming a chiropractor.
Yeah,
I think passion is 100% important.
Yeah, and I think that actually, like, the type of thing you're talking about, I have had that conversation with students. Like, I've had students who are like, I really was enjoying this, but like, I just wasn't enjoying the process. So that's why I'm not. And I have told multiple people, like, if you're just in this for enjoyment, you're probably not going to do well in art. Like, don't get me wrong, it's really enjoyable. But if you want to just call yourself an artist, you don't need a degree for that. You can just go to coffee shops and make finger paintings and feel happy. Like, that's okay. But if you want to be like a commercial artist, or like a serious artist who's like gonna explore and push, it's like trying to get into biology. Like, sure, it's fun to watch a documentary about bears and things in the wild, and that's cool, but there's a lot of boring lab work that goes with it, and you have to be kind of passionate to go into it. I don't think it's wrong to tell like a student, or like somebody who's starting out, or like we've mentioned that too, like people who like want to do comics and then they do like a page of comics and give up. I think we could count like a million examples of that. If you want to do comics, you have to that gets back to that like finishing thing, but you got to like power through and actually be able to finish and deliver stuff. If you don't want to be in that club, that's okay. Right. But yeah, if you're not able to do that, then like maybe, yeah, considering other options is good.
And then
And while I wouldn't encourage it as an approach, there is a long and respected tradition of artists who were told it's not going to work out for you, you should drop this, and that motivated them to push and do great things. Now, that's risky business. I would not recommend people in your position with students start just like, this is going to separate the wheat from the chaff. I'm going to tell them all they need to get out.
Right.
You are all a bunch of losers. None of you are going to make it, you know, and the best ones will survive. I'm not saying that, but sometimes I think the important thing is that people need to sometimes be confronted with,
yes,
what do you want to be doing 10, 20, 30 years from now?
So as a follow-up to that question, and I have an answer and an opinion, but do you think that there is a time when the quality of somebody's work should be the reason that you have that discussion?
Well,
so I
about which discussion, like the like
you should
maybe you should pick something else.
Yeah,
this isn't going to work out for you.
Yeah.
If
in a workplace, yes, 100%.
Oh, see, I'm opposite. Like I would say in an academic level, yes, 100%. I think I would want to feel out, but see, I'm not in your guys' position. But personally, I'm imagining if I was an art professor and I had a student who I thought was struggling, I think I would want to feel out, what is your intention with this? And if they're saying like, oh, I want to be a working blank, like whatever, I think then I would have to find a delicate way to say, I think you need to start looking at your peers who are also interested in that.
Yeah.
And start sizing up how you, like,
where you stack up,
how you compare to them, you know? And I think I wouldn't say like it's not going to happen, because I don't know that. I don't have a crystal ball.
Sure.
But I think I would say, like, if you do want to do that, you're going to be competing with these people, these examples. You need to start matching that, or at least getting competitive to it. And I'm not seeing you at that level right now. You know, you can't do it, but I'm saying you're not now.
I think that's another reason there's a value in like that F in the BFA. I mean, like the academically, like, you know, in order to get a BA in art, you just take the art classes, and if you pass with a C, you're okay, right? And you can get an art degree. So really, you can kind of phone it in, and as long as you're doing the assignments, like you can get an art degree. Right. That's not belittling art degrees. That's just how most like kind of more just rote learning type things like
it's
work.
Not like a math degree where you know your stuff. It's not like a right or wrong. It's like, did you finish your assignments on time?
Yeah, like, and I mean, you have to know some aesthetics at that point, and you can't be making like terrible work. But the great thing about a BFA program is that's where like the weed is separated from the chaff, at least at a university level, where it's like you have to apply for it. You're reviewed by a board on it, whether you're going to get in this program or not. And at that point, you have to be reaching specific aesthetic standards. You have to be displaying like certain knowledge of like a formalistic art, which is measurable. Like you have to have something in it that's more on that philosophical level, where you have a bit of a voice, where you're showing knowledge of like ways of communicating ideas visually very clearly. And that's a harder program. And I think that schools should continue those. I would hate to see the dissolution of like the sort of refined like program, like acceptance programs that BFAs have, because that's a high standard to meet. But the neat thing is, if you meet that standard, you know, that is kind of honing out people who aren't serious. And then again, you're not closing the door for those people in the future. Like, hey, you can retry, but these are things you need to work on. Like, you clearly don't understand perspective. You need to work on how to draw human hands. You need to work on whatever it is. And, you know, you can kind of like refine and keep trying. And I will tell you also, like, this is why I think it's important not to tell people, not that they maybe should major in something else, but telling somebody specifically like, hey, maybe you're not going to be a great artist. While I was going through that process of the BFA program, there's a friend of mine who barely got in, who was a terrible artist, like really terrible, but tried really hard and worked really hard. They're now one of the most famous poster artists in the world, and they're incredible. And so, you know, by all means, like most people analyzing that person at the time would have been like, oh, you have no place in art. You can't draw like a stick figure. And now, you know, this is a person that like designers and artists are looking to like figure out like how did they do this thing. So hard work can get you a long way, you know.
Yeah,
Look,
And
on
we got a
you see
Jim
this?
Lujan.
what's up,
You
Jim?
see who has decided to pop in? This is like Don Rickles showed up to the Tonight Show. I'm so excited. This is
Along those lines. Hi, Jim. I had somebody who washed out of a master's program. She was terrible, didn't do the work, had a bad attitude, and she convinced them to take her back after they kicked her out. And I feel like they did her a huge disservice by taking her back, because
it didn't help her get better.
It didn't help her get better, and my guess is, based on the cost of that program, that she's probably going to pay that off for the rest of her life, but didn't learn what she needed to learn to earn the money for that.
Which is also why, if I was ever going to be staging an intervention, it would be on the academic level, because the cost of tuition is like that will change the trajectory of your life. If you're
and the thing is, the
like
intervention
that's where I would maybe want, and this is very cynical and maybe controversial, but what I will say is it's why I would not have an intervention on a professional level, because I know lots of artists who are not very good that are making a living. So you not being good is not necessarily going to be a problem, you know, like
Yeah, I agree with that. Like if you're making a living, great. But I'm just saying if you're
can you hear
scenario,
me? Oh, yes, because I can't hear you.
You can't hear us?
I can literally not hear you, but I just sorry to interrupt. Just chimed in to say congratulations, Gary.
Thank
you. I can't hear you, so I'm gonna have to log off. I'm actually in Ojai, California, the hometown of Sergio, where Sergio Aragones lives. Maybe I'll try to find him. But we were gonna go on a bike ride, but my friend broke his leg, and you're looking at a hero, man. Right here, I'm a hero. Okay, so I can't hear you. So I'll just say congratulations, Gary. I would definitely want to be on your first show to tell you congratulations. And while I was waiting, I thought I would just chime in and say hello. But I'll talk with you guys later. All right.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I don't know if he could read that, but
So I love that. Jim's amazing. I guess the last thought I have on the professional, to clarify kind of what I meant by that. I don't think I wouldn't go to somebody who's making a living as an artist and be like, maybe you should be an artist, because what do I have to say, right?
Well, or even like
more like if I'm managing someone who is, and this is where I think it's so important to have that intervention in school, because in the real world, like you're not going to have that conversation if you're not fulfilling the mark aesthetically, and you have unhappy clients. I'm just talking from a commercial art standpoint. It's like, it doesn't matter what your intention, your feeling, how hard you're trying. None of that matters. Like money matters. And if your art's not making money, goodbye. Like that's just the harsh reality of commercial art. So like, you know, I could be really happy to like it would feel good to make team members or people like that feel good about their stuff. But if they're not meeting the mark, feelings don't come into it. It's just math. Are we making money? Are we losing money? If we're losing money, and that's the part where like it's so important to have that in school. A little bit of that culling happened before, because when you're out of school, and like Corey was mentioning, you're buried in student loans because an art degree is expensive.
Yeah.
And then you're finding out in the professional world that you can't hold down a job because you can't meet these aesthetic requirements of a job. Like it's a late time to find that out, and you're going to be racked with more bills than you had going into school.
And you're spending 15 or 20 years paying off a degree that you're not using.
Yep.
Like that's
which
I was horrified when I was in a position where we were hiring young artists, like a lot of them right out of art school, and they were telling me what the loans were. I was horrified for them. Like I was, especially, and I hate to say this for anyone who went through that and took on a bunch of debt, in my opinion, a field that does not require an expensive degree, like that you can, like it's nice if you have it, and that's great. I'm not telling anyone not to do art school, but you can sort of do just a state level school and a lot of study and practice and YouTube videos and all that kind of thing. And you can, like, a great portfolio will get you hired, a great academic potential. I don't really care when I've been in that position. Like, I want to see what kind of work you're doing.
Exactly.
If you believe that your portfolio is sharp, I'll hire you. You know, like, but
the key advantage to a degree outside of, because portfolio is going to say everything. If you have a crappy portfolio and you have a degree from Harvard, I don't care.
Right.
But not that I don't even know if they have a great art program, but
I don't know. Yeah.
But my point is, like, it doesn't matter where your degree is from. If your portfolio sucks, you're just not going to get work. But it does show that you can complete something. So if you have a strong portfolio and you have partial college, but no degree, that says something to at least to somebody hiring, at least from my experience, where it's like, maybe this is a person who starts things and doesn't finish. And now, do I want somebody assigned to projects where there are going to be expectations that they need to fulfill? So it does show a good character trait if you can see that that they completed something. That's about it.
Beyond that, for any degree. Yeah, frankly, that's kind of the indicator. What it says to me is that you can follow through in a multi-year long commitment to something. And, you know, follow through and finish. Well.
That's why before marrying somebody, you should ask to see their college degree. I'm just kidding.
You should. You really should.
Can you finish something you start?
Frank, welcome. I'm sorry I didn't get you a link earlier. I just assumed you were in a group chat that you weren't. And but I hate to tell you this. I'm just about to wrap up because I'm ready to start drawing. So they kind of...
Yeah, I figured I wanted to come on before the stream ended. I want to be on your first one as well. I asked a while back, so I was waiting.
Corey, thanks for coming by. I really appreciate it. And maybe I'll see you next time.
Yep. See you guys.
All right. I'm sorry. Go on, Frank.
As I asked a while back, but I guess you guys were talking about.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't. Well, no, I saw you say like you were gonna hop in, and I was like, oh, he's probably got the link, and I wasn't even thinking. I was just sorry about that. Next time, I will have you if you're available. I'll have you in right from this.
Yeah. And then, it was a good discussion. So I was actually learned a lot from the later part.
I think it was a good first show. Now the second one for sure is going to be tough because we started up here.
The second one's going to have debates.
The next one, I think, next time we need to tank it with just a terrible bad faith debate.
Let's do it.
Just something that's no one's being intellectually honest.
All right.
The subject doesn't even matter. Like it's just garbage. We're just going to ruin everybody's day. They're going to be telling their friends about, I saw the worst conversation.
If you want to see things like that, you guys should tune into my live stream.
I think next
time. If you want to see the worst conversations,
the worst. That will be
the worst ever conversations.
If you want to be just mad, if you want to ruin your Saturday, tune in to Gary Hodges' YouTube.
Do you want to feel angry for the rest of the day?
Yeah.
Watch.
You want to tell friends, people who don't even know this channel or anything about me. It's like, I need to tell you about this awful, awful argument I watched on YouTube.
So Gary, do you feel like you got a decent amount of work done? Like, are these streams? It's the first stream, so what's your take? Do you think it was tenable?
It was great. I really enjoyed it. I think, and I wouldn't change a thing, but the last 20 minutes, I had gone as far as I could, where now it's like, okay, now I need to start drawing. But instead I was engaged in talking because I was enjoying the conversation so much. So this is going to be the thing I'm going to have to do each week is realize like, okay, I got to start winding it up. Like just now we're going to pivot. Thanks. See you guys next week. Like that kind of thing. But no, I thought it was good. I had fun. I hope people enjoyed watching it. I'm glad you guys decided to drop in. That was nice.
Well, thanks for having us.
Make sure I was on the first one as well. You should have a banner where it's like time to draw. So when you get that point, you just click the banner.
Corey could probably help me figure out like a 15-minute countdown where I could throw it up while we're talking and it'll like start counting down. It's like, this is when I'm hopping off to draw. That would be kind of a neat. Yeah, that would be a good.
You could do it like Josh did last time where he left the stream and it was just me and Scott on his show.
Just left. I could just do that. I was like, well, I'm going to go get something and just never come back.
All right. Well, I appreciate being on. That was fun. I actually have to go eat too. So
yes. Okay.
Thank you for having me on.
Frank, like I said, next time I'll send out a thing, and if you want to be there right from the start, we'll pop you in. And anybody else, anybody in the chat, anybody who wants to hop on, like this is not an exclusive club. If you're interested in coming on and bullshitting, now here's the place. I've got you a platform for ugly debating. For just there's not going to be any ugly debates. We're going to avoid the ugly debates.
All right.
Thanks for everyone who was in the chat. I was happy to see it. Thank you, Dee. Thank you, AGMD Studios. Do we know AGMD Studios? Who is that?
That's Monkey Wrench Studios. He partners up with Fogbreaker.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Fogbreaker Studios, and they do the mini comic bundles.
Yeah. Awesome. That's Aaron. That's why I didn't recognize the. Okay, yeah. And then Cameron, thank you. Jim, thanks for doing your little pop in. Who else? Who did I said Cameron.
Chase was on earlier, and he had to go work out and do a model shoot, apparently.
Chase, we got to get Chase in one of the, whether it's Artcasters or mine or Crimson Owl or something. Like I think Chase deserves a little more online exposure. His work is really good. I'm really interested in his comic. I really seems like a cool guy. All right, guys. I am tuning out. So thanks so much. Thanks again. Have a great rest of the day. Oh, and then I'm going to post this. I had this quote. To achieve great things, two things are needed. Josh will especially appreciate this. A plan and not quite enough time. That's by Leonard Bernstein. So there you go. Take that with you on your working weekend. All right, guys.
All right.
Next week.
Bye. Sounds good.